in agreeing to write this essay, I have promised to explain why I find Darwinism unconvincing. In order to keep this promise, I will be compelled to acknowledge the apparently paradoxical fact that I find it convincing as well. I find it convincing because it is in certain respects correct, and in fact tautologically so in the logical sense. I find it unconvincing because it is based on a weak and superficial understanding of causality, and is therefore incomplete. Explaining why this is so will require a rather deep investigation of the nature of causality. It will also require, not only that a direction of progress be indicated, but that a new synthesis embracing the seemingly antithetical notions of teleology and natural selection be outlined. But first, some essential background on it. Would be hard to imagine philosophical issues bearing more strongly on the human condition than the nature of life and the meaning of human existence, and it would be hard to imagine a scientific issue bearing more strongly on the nature and meaning of life than biological origins. Our view of evolutionary biology, whatever it happens to be at any particular juncture, tells us much of what we believe about who and what we are, and why we are here, unavoidably affecting how we view, and ultimately, treat, ourselves and each other. Unfortunately, the prevailing theory of biological origins seems to be telling us that at least one of these questions, why are we here, is meaningless, or at least this is the message that many of us, whether or not we are directly aware of it, seem to have received. As a result, the brightest hope of the new millennium, that we would see the dawn of a new enlightenment in which the meaning of it all would at last be revealed, already seems to have gone the way of an extravagant campaign promise at an inauguration ceremony. The field of evolutionary biology is currently dominated by neo-Darwinism, a troubled marriage of convenience between post-Mendelian genetics and natural selection. A concept propounded by the naturalist Charles Darwin in his influential treatise on the origin of species. It has often been noted that the field and the theory appear to be inseparable. In many respects, it seems that evolutionary biology and Darwinism originated and evolved together, leading some to conclude that the field properly contains nothing that is not already accommodated by the theory. Those attempting to justify this view frequently assert that the limitations of the theory are just the general limitations imposed on all scientific theories by standard scientific methodology, and that to exceed the expressive limitations of the theory is thus to transgress the boundaries of science. Others have noted that this seems to assume a prior justification of scientific methodology that does not in fact exist. Merely that it works for certain purposes does not imply that it is optimal, particularly when it is evidently useless for others, and that in any case, the putative falsifiability of neo-Darwinism distinguishes it from any definition of science according to which the truth or falsity of such theories can be scientifically determined. Nevertheless, neo-Darwinism continues to claim exclusive dominion over the quote-unquote science of evolutionary biology. Until the latter part of the 18th century, the story was quite different. People tended to regard the matter of biological origins in a religious light. The universe was widely considered to have been freely and purposefully designed and created by God as described in the book of Genesis, and divine purpose was thought to be immanent in nature and open to observation and study. This doctrine, called teleology, drew rational support from traditional theological arguments from design, holding that nature could only have been designed and created by a supreme intelligence. But teleology began to wane with the rise of British empiricism, and by the time Darwin published his theory in 1859, the winds of change were howling his anthem. Since then, the decline of teleology has accelerated to a point at which every supposedly universal law of nature is confidently presented as irrefutable evidence that natural events unfold independently of intent, and that purpose, divine or otherwise, is irrelevant to natural causation.